Welcome back to The Outright Effect, a podcast in which unique perspectives challenge us to be better versions of ourselves. We're two ambitious women who talk about how we like to stretch our creativity and work on self-growth to become better people. I'm Tempsy.
And I'm Shelly.
And today we have a very special quote-unquote guest. She's a permanent guest here on The Outright Effect. I want to invite Shelly from Simple Casual Chic. I am actually going to interview Shelly to talk about a huge milestone that she recently reached on YouTube, which is 1,000 subscribers. She's been working on this for, what was it, 2 or 3 years?
About 3.5 years.
3.5 years. She's been working really hard to get to this milestone. And since we do often interview business owners and potential business owners or thriving business owners, we wanted to take this opportunity to ask Shelly some questions about how she got to this milestone, maybe what's next for her, all the great things that you typically hear from our other business owners, and just share that information with you folks. So
yeah, let's do
welcome, Shelly.
That's funny.
Yeah. Welcome to your own podcast.
Wow. Oh my God. Thanks for having me.
Well, why don't you remind our listeners what your YouTube channel, Simple Casual Chic, is about?
Sure. So my YouTube channel, Simple Casual Chic, initially started off with videos where I was reviewing a lot of products, doing hauls and things like that. And I think over time, it's kind of transitioned a little bit. I feel like I've been talking about a broader range of topics lately. So, where mostly before I was talking about fashion, trying out a bunch of different things. I mean, I'm definitely still trying out a bunch of different things, but it might be more like organizational or professional development and things like that. Just kind of sharing my experiences, my stories, etc. And I think at the end of the day, my goal is to just help the, general person out there who finds any of this information helpful or entertaining or whatever, I mean, I feel like in general, I just like sharing information with other people, like no matter what it might be, the thing I just watched on Netflix, the book I just read or whatever. And I don't know. I mean, I would really like to share that with more people. And that's why I started a channel.
Awesome. The things that I really enjoy about your channel, because you seem to be, and we've talked about this before, I believe in the personality assessment episode where you are one of those people who kind of likes to stay on top of the newest things that come out.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I love going to your channel to watch some of the skincare products that you recommend, even though like I'm not in the market for those high-end items that you save your money up and buy. I enjoy watching and learning about those items. And I think one of the ones that I really enjoyed recently was the episode about reorganizing your office and some of the things that you're thinking about. So those are just some of the amazing things that you can get from Shelly's channel. And so I recommend everybody go out and check it out if you haven't already.
Yeah, thanks. It's funny because I feel like initially that's what I was like hooked on watching. Like one, I think it was sort of like how to kind of videos, like how to do your makeup like this or like do your hair like this. And this was like back in the day when YouTube was brand new, definitely not what it is in 2021.
Yeah.
But the second thing I would watch a lot is just like people talking about skincare products and like just trying stuff out or like hauls and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I can make a haul video. Like that sounds like fun. So I buy a lot of stuff. I can make a haul video.
So is that what inspired you to start your very own YouTube channel? Like what drew you to it?
Yeah. So I think, really what kicked it off or got the wheels turning in my mind about starting one is I was looking for other things to do, like a hobby. I felt like I spent so much time in college studying and then like, right after college, still trying to study for other things, whether it be like other degrees or certifications. And it was all revolving around work. And so once I completed those things, I think I was like kind of confused. Like, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something right now. And yes, I think we all deserve to take a break at some point or another as well. And I felt like I did that, but then I also felt like there's something else to be done, and
it wasn't as fulfilling as you thought it was going to be, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think the rest portion, like I was studying, blah, blah, blah. I took some exams, I got some certifications. And then after that, it was like a lull, like a huge like break in doing anything after work or on the weekends. I was no longer studying for
Oh,
anything.
comparatively, you had a
Yeah,
lot less on your
yeah,
plate.
yeah. And then so I was like, okay, I mean, I let myself take a break for a while, but then I was like, okay, so what? I just go to work now, and that's it.
And
Like,
that's the rest of my life. I just work.
yeah, it was like this giant like question mark. But then, I think it also got me thinking about like what other skills can I build? What kinds of things do I think is fun? And it took me back to thinking about when I was in high school, I was like super into computers and like doing stuff online. I mean, we didn't have platforms and apps and stuff back then. That didn't, we're
Hmm.
old. That didn't exist.
Hey, who you
And
calling
so,
old?
I think me watching all these videos, getting really interested in it, and then kind of being curious about like editing videos and like how are people growing on the internet? Like that was something that was very intriguing to me. And I was like, well, why don't I try it out? It was kind of like that. And so it took me back to those days and helped me begin to use some of those skills that I was using before college happened and I,
Right.
had to stop doing leisure things. But yeah.
And now there's more tools that you get to learn about and dive
Hmm.
into that are
Hmm.
a little bit, I don't know about easier to use, but more intuitive, I guess.
Yeah, more intuitive or comprehensive, or like between then and now, people consider like user experiences, like what they call it, right? Like how easy is it for someone to use and how like practical is this tool? And like, they're thinking about the end result and what somebody's trying to get out of using, whatever that application might be. And so I thought that was really interesting to like learn about it. Like, oh my God, yeah, like this is super helpful. Like I wish I had this like 10 years ago.
Yeah, because to be a little bit more specific, you were actually
Yeah, I
coding
would
to
like
create a
code
website, right?
websites and stuff like that. Yeah, back in like high school, that's what I used to like stay up late at night to like mess around with,
For
write
fun.
out all the code. Yeah, for fun. That's what I used to do. And so, nowadays I feel like there's a different version of coding out there,
Right.
not so much with websites anymore. Like things on websites are more like plug and play these
Yeah, you have
days.
Squarespace now.
Yeah, so it's like I think where it translated to was like editing videos, like figuring out like what are the shortcut keys to like edit and like what are all the features of like these programs. And I did used to play around with Photoshop back in the day, which like it's kind of funny because Photoshop is very like when you look at it, it's very much the same as it was before. Like I'm sure there's a lot more enhancements and like easier ways to do it, but like the basics of what it looks a lot the same as it did in like the early 2000s. So I wasn't good at Photoshop necessarily, but it felt good to pick up something again that at least looked a little bit familiar to like something I had used before. It wasn't like totally foreign. Yeah.
Well, what was the first step you took? The very first step in creating a YouTube channel?
I think it was actually like a combination of things. Like I can't at this point, like it's been a while, so I can't remember exactly like which one came first, but it
Hmm.
was some combination of getting a camera, figuring out how to video edit, and then it was really just trying it out. I'm like, okay, let me record a video first. All right, let me figure out how to edit this thing. I have no idea. And then like, how do I even upload this video that I edited? Like, was all this time I just used like for nothing, or am I actually going to be able to like edit it? Oh, look, it's so easy. It's a drag and drop. So it was, I think that was definitely part of it with like actually like starting it up. But if I think back to like any prep work that might have gone into it, it probably was like educating myself on the topic of like starting a YouTube channel and like what people are doing with it. And I think that whole story to me is like so intriguing. It may not be for others, but it definitely is for me, because there's sort of like to me, it's like an experiment, like
Yeah.
somebody did something either intentionally or on accident, and then it like gave them some kind of result, and like how did that play out? I think that's just super interesting to me.
Oh yeah.
um so yeah, I think that's definitely a part of like the prep work before the filming of the first video and all that stuff, like just the curiosity and like getting educated on the topic, which I mean, I honestly, I would say like that's not something I feel like is a requirement or that I would recommend to anybody,
With
because
the
you can
research?
the research, because you can definitely like go down some crazy rabbit holes. You know what I mean? Like, don't make it be a barrier for you. Like, even just uploading a simple video, you don't need to do all that legwork first. I think that's kind of what sparked the interest to actually do it for me. So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's like something to play around with. And then also, I mean, for the person who's just gonna like jump in and do it, I mean, just be mindful of what you're putting out on the internet, because sometimes it can like stay there forever. So,
Sometimes.
I mean, some things also get lost on out there, right? Like, people never find it or whatever. And like, maybe if that's the embarrassing video, that might be okay, because nobody will ever see it. But
Well, speaking of
yeah.
embarrassing videos, do you still have that first video you recorded?
I mean, I definitely have the first one that I posted. I can't remember if I like trial ran the very, very first one, or if that's actually the one that lives on my channel, but it's still there. I didn't do anything with it. Someone could go and watch it if they wanted to. It was a haul. I went on a trip and like bought a bunch of stuff. And I was just kind of like talking through it. I think for me, when I talk through videos, there are definitely some videos where I want to be a little bit more like detailed, and I will like jot down a few notes of things that I want to mention. But at the end of the day, I feel like I don't want to sound super scripted. That's not the intent of my video. I'm not
Right.
trying to like create a workshop or teach a class or be a teacher or anything like that. And so really it was just me like sitting there and like pulling everything out of a box or a bag or, whatever it was in, stuff that I bought, and just like showing it and talking about it and like why I bought it or where I bought it at. And it was just kind of more of like a casual, like free flowing. I feel like that's like the general gist of like my videos, the feeling of it. It's
Would
more
have been
like,
funnier if it was embarrassing.
yeah, it
Just
wasn't
just
really
saying.
embarrassing. I wasn't doing anything crazy.
Not that you really get embarrassed, if I'm being honest. Well, earlier you mentioned barriers, like don't let the research be a barrier to moving forward. Did you run into any like internal or external barriers that could have held you back?
I feel like, if anything, I feel like with starting, I didn't have too many external barriers. I got, equipment that I felt like I needed beforehand, like a tripod, a camera, like that kind of stuff. If anything, I feel like perhaps an external barrier might have been like the learning curve with using video editing software for the first time.
Hmm.
But again, there's YouTube out there. You can definitely learn how. It's not impossible. So I think it's just kind of like, recognizing that and not being like, oh no, I don't know how to edit a video. Guess I'm not going to, right? Like, it's like, oh no,
Yeah.
I don't know how to edit a video. But like, obviously there are resources out there talking about how to do this or that, especially when it comes to like, the very basic level of editing, which I feel like I'm still kind of like in that realm. Like, I haven't done anything complex, and hopefully one of these days I can venture into that a little bit more once I figure out what is that thing I want to learn.
Hmm.
But I feel like that was probably external barriers. Internal barriers, I feel like, are more so happening to me like now,
Oh.
because for people who are trying to turn social media into like a side hustle, sometimes they need some additional materials, almost like your resume of being like a content creator.
Mm.
So I think for me, those are internal barriers, because I'm like, what do I like? I'm used to regular resumes. What do
Now you
I
have to
put on
make
this
like
other thing?
a brand kit or
Yeah.
something of that nature.
So yeah, I feel like that's more of like an internal barrier where like I'm thinking too hard about like what to put on there, and
Hmm.
at the end of the day, I really try not to. And I think, we've talked about this before. Like, I really try not to have like internal barriers get in my way. I mean, I guess I would say, luckily, I don't have the internal barrier of like, oh my God, I can't do it.
Right.
I'm just like oh, well, I'm going to try it. And like, you learn from making mistakes and blah, blah, blah. Right.
Yeah.
So, it's like, I need it. I'm going to do it. It's just, I think, sometimes too, it's like a matter of when. Do I have enough time to do it, between like work and other things, like full-time job, right? The job I show up for, right?
Hmm.
And then this, because this isn't a job for me yet, right? It's fun. And so I think, in that sense, it's like prioritization I feel like sometimes, depending on what it is, can be an internal barrier, because, I'm prioritizing the things that like textbook definition says I need to prioritize.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
And there's only 24 hours in a
Right.
day,
There's
and
only exactly.
8 of those you're sleeping. So, yeah. You can only do what you can do. You know, I second the thought that you really do try to work through barriers, internal or external, whatever the case might be. I feel like you're one of those people who truly believes, without having anybody like explicitly tell you, everything can be figured out, right?
Yeah. And I'm totally like the if somebody else can do it, I can do it too. Unless if it's like, I don't know, there's some kind of genius or something
Being
like
like
that.
a
Like,
star basketball player or something.
yeah, like I
There's
can't
always
do that. Like I'd have to grow another foot, number one, which is like virtually impossible. But you know, other things like skills to learn or like things to try, like starting a YouTube channel or whatever. Like if other people can do it, I can do it.
right.
And yeah, it's not a big deal.
It's funny when you recommended that book, it's all figure outable. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's
I was
figure
like,
outable.
what do you need that book for? I mean, it's always good to read and gather additional tidbits, you know, to be a better person, have more perseverance. But it was just funny when you told me about that. I was like, why?
It's a good book. Like, you know, I've mentioned it a couple of times to other people and like people are very intrigued by it. But I think at the end of the day, like it's very true, you
Yeah,
know, and I think, you know, I guess I would say like one of the reasons like why I think I can figure stuff out is because I've had jobs where like there was no manual, you know, there was no instructions that were there for
right.
me when I arrived.
You were
And the
the one who
person
probably
who
created the instruction.
and the person who was doing that job before me was already gone. I couldn't ask anybody, like, how do
Right.
I do this thing? So to me, it's like, if I can do that in like a real life situation where somebody hired me for a job, right? And like, that's
Yeah.
like what I was there to do. I
Yeah.
can absolutely do it with other things.
In fake life situations rather than real life. No, just
In
kidding.
fake life situations, in side hustle or whatever, you know, other situations. Yeah.
Right. I'll give you that. I knew what you were saying. So, how has your channel changed over time? Has it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, this kind of goes back to what I was mentioning before about my channel initially starting with haul videos. And soon after my first video, I did start to post about like designer items. That was the other reason why I was on YouTube so much. I was looking up stuff before I wanted to, you know, spend money on it. And I definitely wanted to see what other people thought about it, like the wear and tear, etc., before I went out and got it myself. And that was something that I felt like I wanted to share my perspective on using X, Y, and Z as well.
Right.
So I feel like that's where I started. And I feel like where it's going is now different with talking about like productivity, office organization, like those kinds of things. I feel like I like a variety of different topics. Like it's kind of broad. I'm not trying to be like so broad. It's kind of like crazy and confusing, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like, what am I posting? It's content about myself and my life, things that I feel like other people should know. So,
And yeah,
yeah.
people want to get to know you better too, right?
Right. They don't just want to be like, and I think I feel like what I noticed with other YouTubers that I followed and watched their videos, like they would talk so much about like their thing. Like other people started to like wonder, make assumptions, you know, like all these other things about like this person. So like some people be like, where did you get your money from to like buy this thing or whatever? Like, what do you do in real life? Because I think, you know, at the point in which I became interested in like posting YouTube videos and I was watching it, this was a hobby for everybody and everybody worked full time, like at their regular jobs, you know, they were like in marketing and design and like, or whatever they were doing somewhere else. And like, people got really curious. Like, I think this was even before like anyone could make money from YouTube, you know, like it was really just for fun. And I did post a video about like, this is how I saved up to like buy stuff. Like I'm a normal person.
Yeah.
Like don't come here and be like, oh, she's getting this. Like, oh, out of my league. I'm not gonna watch that. You know, like I'm a normal person,
You have
nothing
to save up like
spectacular.
everybody else.
Yeah,
And
exactly. And so nothing spectacular is going on here. Money definitely doesn't fall from the sky. And I don't have this magical container at home that I just open it up and there's cash in it or anything like that. You know, like it just replenishes itself magically. That definitely doesn't happen.
ooh, what if it did? That'd
I
be
know, that'd be
great.
great, right?
You don't even need a YouTube channel. Just kidding. So, high level, like, what lessons have you learned along the way?
Yeah, I guess I feel like, well, one, you know, people can figure it out, you know, it's kind of like what we were talking about before. If someone else can do it, then I can definitely do it.
Hmm.
And otherwise, I feel like it's more so like tactical lessons that I've learned, you know, like how to do something. think it's important to, it's funny because I don't like to do this in general, but like read through the fine print. Like I don't really like doing that at all. But I think sometimes it's like kind of necessary, depending on what you're trying to do with whatever it is, right? So like for me, if it's a YouTube channel and like becoming monetized on YouTube recently, there are things you have to like forms you need to fill out and like things you need to get approved for and like other like policy, like YouTube policies that you need to follow. And so people may watch these videos thinking like, oh, everyone's just having fun. And I'm sure people are just having fun, to some degree, but they themselves are either doing something very like business management, business administrative, in the background, or they're
Right.
hiring somebody to do that for them. So I think, that's definitely like an interesting piece that doesn't get seen. And I mean, it's very true, right? Like anywhere anyone is working, there are like all these things that happen behind the scenes. And when you don't know about them, that's when they're working well. So you never find out.
Well, we both learned in a previous episode, I can't remember which one, but we both learned we both enjoy the behind the scenes of other people's jobs, right? Even ours, the ones that we've worked over
Right.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding that is
Mm-hmm.
so interesting. So now you have all the behind the scenes. But I think, the reason that I asked this question is because maybe it's more on me, is that I don't think I realize how much strategy goes into running a YouTube channel and adjusting your approach to that YouTube channel, and also how you spread the word through social media. There's so
Mm-hmm.
much strategy, right? Like that's one of
Mm-hmm.
the things that maybe you already knew, you're just learning different ways of doing it over time, but that was one of the ones that I thought might come up. But any thoughts on that? Or is that just
Yeah.
me?
Well, like speaking of strategy, I mean, I think like the other question, like what would I do differently? I think some things would have been like being more consistent, because I did kind of come and go, and I still kind of do on
In the
my
beginning?
channel. Actually, in the beginning, I was very consistent. And
Oh,
then I would like run out of something to talk about. And then, I wouldn't post something for like 2 or 3 months or something like that. And then I
did
would
that
come
stress you
back for a
out?
little bit. No, not necessarily. I think maybe like a little bit. I mean, it's almost like you feel like not guilty, but you're kind of like, I'm supposed to be doing this thing, but I'm busy right now, or I don't have anything to talk about, and I don't want to force myself to talk about anything either.
Right.
And so like I think, it's still kind of happening now. And I think there's a different like element to that, right? Because before, a lot of my videos, it was about what I bought. So, it's like, how much money can I spend, right? Like, how many
Yeah.
things do I really need to accumulate? And like, I think that's kind of like how my channel has changed over time too. I'm not just trying to like shop every weekend or something like that. So just so I can make a video. And I definitely know that there's people out there who do that kind of stuff, like
Yeah.
they've talked about it themselves. Like I go to the, like in their past, when they first started making YouTube videos, they would go to the store, they would buy some stuff, make a video about it, talk about it, and then return it all, because it's like they can't actually own it all, at the end of the day. And so that's where I feel like I kind of would have liked to be a little bit more consistent. I would have liked to like couple my Instagram with YouTube a little bit more before as well. I felt like I
Yeah.
was having those two things operate very separately until maybe like this year, end of last year or something like that. But, I think it goes back to like, what is somebody's goal with doing this in the first place? Because if you are just kind of like having fun with it or whatever, then maybe you don't need to do that. But if you're looking at it from like a building a business standpoint, then it probably is more beneficial to do all of those things and like relate
Right.
them to each other. Yeah.
And for those of you listening who are wondering, why do you have to be consistent? You don't have a boss who's like down your neck saying, hey, you're going to hit a deadline. You need to post something. It's not about that. It's more consistency drives
Engagement
community
and
engagement. Yep.
yeah, and I think too, like at the end of the day, like for someone who is thinking about this in terms of a business, well, yeah, you don't have a boss, but you become your own boss. And like, what are those expectations
Yeah. You have to
for
have
you to like reach a
accountability for
goal? Yeah, you
yourself.
can just be like, oh, I'm just going to do this whenever, here and there. I mean, some people probably can get away with that, but not all of us can.
Right.
Yeah.
And the more you're in front of people, the more they're going to, be drawn
Remember,
to
come
you.
back.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So now that you've reached such a huge milestone, what's next for your channel in terms of goals?
So, kind of gone back and forth in my mind about like some of these things. I think that I'm definitely heading in a different direction. Like with my content, I want to talk more about maybe more behind the scenes or like day in the life of a content creator, whatever, you know, like once that day comes and I am doing it all day. But something that I would love to do on my channel is collaborate more with others.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, whether that be another YouTuber or brands, you know, I think that would be something really cool for me. I would enjoy that. I also, you know, at some point would want to like perhaps release a product or, you know, something along those lines. I don't know what it would be, honestly, but I do feel like those are just other opportunities to grow a business, right? You have to think about those other like funnels or whatever, like channels
Right.
that you can head down if you're interested. And so, yeah, I mean, what's next? I hope to collaborate with other people on YouTube or brands on to make videos and stuff like that. And something that I think would be really cool is if I could start posting more like, I'm going to say this and it's going to sound like confusing. I want to call it like cinematic content, which does not mean I'm making a movie, but it's to get more like cool, like slow motion footage to like incorporate into my video where I'm talking
Right.
about like whatever it is already, you know. I don't
Yeah.
mean like, yeah, we're not making a movie here, but it's just to make the
Movie-esque.
video more interesting, right?
Yeah.
I'm not just sitting there and talking. That's kind of really what I mean.
And that's kind of just leveling up your skill set in terms of filming and editing videos too, which
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. And I foresee that once you start traveling again too, you'll have so many opportunities to be able to do that.
Yeah, to just like get different things because these days and maybe in the last couple of years, we're kind of just confined. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Very soon, I believe. We'll
Hmm.
see. Knock on wood, cross your
Yep.
fingers. Do you foresee any challenges ahead?
I definitely see challenges, but it's more like organizational, like how I spend my time in my day kind of challenges. I feel like
Which
there
you're
are
kind of
so
going
many
through
things
right
to
now,
do.
right?
Yeah. There are so many things that I want to do, but figuring out how to like fit it all into the time that I have, you know, outside of regular work is definitely challenging. And I also think that that's where I really consider like what I want to commit to doing, right?
In terms of collaborations or
In terms of like
partnerships.
collaborations, yeah, exactly. Partnerships. Yeah, that's where it's like you're on the hook, right? Kind of, right? Like
Right.
you're agreeing with somebody else to do something. And you know, I'm that person who like gets it done early, blah, 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 like, you know, all that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. And it becomes challenging when there's a job and when the day is done, I'm like, I just want to sleep or whatever. Like I'm so tired. Like I don't like what can I do right now? Plus the sun's going down and
Your
like
energies only
it's
go
not
so
gonna look
far,
good.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, and so I feel like that's just kind of maybe a temporary challenge in the near future, you know, and
Sure.
yeah, hopefully that will change. I mean, I'm sure it will change at some point.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, what keeps you motivated in those times?
I think it's just the excitement that I have around like creating content. I particularly like making reels. And I haven't been able to make as many reels that I want to, but I think it's just to me it's just fun. And I think that's the whole point at the end of the day, like you know, that it's fun, it's not a chore, you know.
Right.
And I also really like when I get comments from other people about what they watch in a video or that they're like giving me recommendations. I just think it's so funny. Like that's just a new kind of like experience to have, you know, like and where like some people will be out and about and they're like, oh, Shelly would like this thing, you know, and then they DM me a picture of it or something like that. And I'm like, oh, that's neat. Like
Yeah,
these
that's
people I've
cool.
never met before are like, oh, Shelly would like this. And they're like sending it to me. Like, I just think it's kind of cool. You know, it's like it's that whole like building community and like
Absolutely.
having that network, that social connection to others. And yeah, I think that's what at the end of the day keeps me motivated because it's fun.
So you do enjoy because you're really good at the networking stuff. You're really good about thinking of who might be good to connect with who, and you introduce people a lot, and you create your own mini
Mm-hmm.
networks here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
so that is something that you enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's like if somebody found some value, you know, one little piece, then it was all worth it to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I love that. So outside of subscriber count, what are some metrics that you track?
So I definitely look at, outside of subscriber count, I definitely look at most popular videos, that kind of thing.
Like most watched?
Yeah, most watched and continue to be most watched. that's interesting to me. Also like demographic, like age range, geographic location. That's kind of interesting, especially when I see someone who like lives somewhere else. There are people in like the UK who come across my channel and
Nice.
I'm just like, that's so crazy. Like I live on a little island in the middle of the ocean and like you're somehow finding my channel.
That's
But
super cool.
yeah, it's to me, it's just intriguing. I think that time will tell what other metrics I should be paying attention to. I think that it's a very like slow and steady right now, but I'm waiting for like the crazy blip, and then you're kind of like, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
what happened? What happened there?
Yeah.
And in that sense, I think that will give like new perspective to everything that's going on. So hopefully, one of those days that shows up.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is there anything coming up for your channel that you'd like to share?
I will be doing more like office organization. I am getting some new pieces for my office, desk, chair, computer kind of equipment, like that kind of thing. And I want to talk more about it, especially because creating content, being on YouTube, social media, like that kind of stuff, it is, I guess, generally, it's more of like a work from home kind of job.
Mm-hmm.
And, we've been working from home like for quite some time now. But
And you're just now setting up your office?
and I'm just now setting up my office. And I think, the reason why it's like a different perspective on it now is because before, when it was just for work somewhere else, like you don't really feel like you want to put the money in to buy like a good monitor or a desk or whatever, because you're like, work's not buying this for me. You know what I mean?
Speak
Like
for yourself. I
yeah.
went overboard.
To me, it's like, but once it's like mine and it's like for me to use to generate my own income, that's when I want to level it up.
Gotcha.
Because to me, it's like, well, I'm going to be my own thing. And the result of that is going to yield X, Y, and Z for me, right? Whether it be monetarily or like reach or whatever the case might be. So how can I like make my area like the most comfortable or conducive to me producing the best thing that I can?
Right.
Like it's more like skin in the game, right? Like I feel like
Mm-hmm.
when it's you doing your own thing versus when you're doing something for someone else. Like I'm not saying that I like slack off at work or anything. I absolutely do not. But I'm less willing to spend money to buy things to like
more support
do
that
that for
business.
somebody else. Yeah, to support that business. It's almost like I spent money for that business so that I could do
Right.
work at home. And I'm like,
Well, especially because you have a perfectly good workstation at work, you just can't use it because,
right.
you know.
Yeah. And like that's the whole thing. And soon I think we may be planning to go back to work probably. So then when it's in your mind that this is a temporary fix that I'm working from home in, then you're less likely to like invest in these like longer term like physical objects
That's
to
true.
put in your home.
I moved to Vegas, so I knew I wasn't going back into the office.
Yeah. And so for like initially for me, I'm like, this is temporary. I'm not buying anything because like, when all of this first started, we're like, it's 2 weeks, it's a month, and then we're all going to go back. Right. And clearly
Right.
that's not the case. But, I think that in the backs of our minds, for a lot of us who are working from home, we're like, why am I going to spend this money when I have a perfectly fine desk that I'm eventually at some point going to go back to?
Right.
It's like, I'm not going to like spend all this money for home when this is just a temporary solution. And then it, stretched out farther than we thought it would. And so, I think if the thought is at some point we will be going back, that's still kind of in the like, well, should I buy the desk? Like the desk is like, right? Like you're like, I'd rather save that money and like spend it on something else. But when it's like, okay, like, this is a personal business or, whatever you want to call it, like what are the equipment that I need to do it, right? Like that narrative is different, and it like, oh no, I should get a good monitor, like I should get a good desk, or I should get a good chair because that's the one I'm going to have at home in my home office that I really am going to be sitting in for 8 hours a day or something,
Right.
So yeah.
Very true. Very true. Well, I'm excited to see what your final office, scenario looks like. I don't know why I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff, but I'm excited to see it.
It's so funny because I'm imagining it in my mind versus like, I've been doing a lot of research on YouTube with watching like other people's office setups and like, their product recommendations for like monitors and keyboards and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And it's funny because I feel like the feel of that look of that desk setup is very different from like the day job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where I'm like looking at spreadsheets and PowerPoint and Word document and PDF. It is that setup of someone who is doing something more graphics related, you know, like their
Mm-hmm.
job is like graphics and design and like that kind of stuff. So it's kind of funny. Like, I'm like, whoa, should I start getting into computer video game things or whatever? Like, that's kind of what the desk like kind of looks like. It's just funny to me because I'm like, I don't play games at all. Like, I suck at playing video games.
Are you gonna have speakers in your chair?
Oh my God. I probably have speakers on my desk, but not in my chair.
Surround sound. You can watch your videos in surround sound. Was there anything else you wanted to add? Any tips or tricks or advice for our listeners?
I mean, if I had any advice, it really would just be start doing something. You know, if you're interested in doing something, like whatever it might be, like you're not going to just magically learn how to do it. There is probably some learning involved. Like it may be easier or more difficult just depending on what it is. But if it's that thing that you want to do, like nobody can do it for you, basically, right? Like
Right.
there is a individual personal initiative that needs to be taken in order to start. And so yeah, that would be my suggestion, because you don't know where it's going to take you or what it's going to be like. It could be really great. If it's not, that's great. You can just, let it go, stop doing it, and like go in another direction. And I think, it's all a learning experience with figuring out what we like and what we don't like and what works and what doesn't work. So yeah, I think that would be like my main piece of advice, because I literally like taught myself how to do all the stuff that I'm doing. It does take time. It does take some research. And it's funny because the word research to me is actually really cringy, because it makes me think I'm like going to a library and like pulling out the encyclopedia and like flipping through pages and books. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because I feel like that was research to us, in high school and college.
Absolutely.
Like that's how it was going down. And I think a lot of times it was about topics we didn't care about. Like we didn't like. We're like, what? I have to look at this thing. Oh my gosh, like what a drag. But like when it's something that you enjoy, like research is not so bad. You're really just like leveling up your knowledge on that thing that you like anyway. So
Right.
I think not having a trigger over the word research, because it means something else when you're trying to do something that you like and that's more fun.
Two interesting points you made in your advice there is that if it's not working out, that's okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
And give yourself a timeline. Like, hey, I'm going to put this much energy and this much time into this thing, but make sure you know it's something you're going to somewhat enjoy. And the only reason I say that is because even if it doesn't work out, it still means you've gained a lot of great skills along the way, and you probably learned a lot along the way. So all of that stuff is applicable to other things. Typically, it's applicable to something.
Yeah. And so the funny thing about that is like, here I was for fun learning video editing and like voiceovering and like all that kind of stuff. And I did actually have to use it for work. I had to make training videos about something. So it's like, oh, well, great. I mean, at least I already understand the concept of this, And so, yeah, I think depending on like what your profession is, like sometimes those things do help, right? Like the hobby thing that you're doing does actually translate into actual like work skills that are helpful.
Yeah, I had to record our outgoing message at work and had to turn it into a .wav file, and it was like an M4 file, and I was like, oh, I can do that. So it's so true, just because of the podcast. So, well, in lieu of rapid fire questions, I have some fun questions for you. I'm calling them fun questions because they're fun for me. Whether they're fun for you is, So what are your favorite videos to record?
So actually, my favorite types of videos to record are actually like reels with like transitions and like kind of putting it to music and that kind of stuff. Like those are, I know that doesn't go on YouTube necessarily, but I would say those are like my favorite videos to record, because there is like an additional layer of creativity that goes into it. And while I do like uploading videos to YouTube, like that's all fun, like I enjoy that as well. I think that content, like what it is like, depending on who you are, because there's definitely people doing like very adventurous, fun stuff out there. But like for my channel and my videos, it's like less fun. You know what I mean? I'm more like, here's this thing, I really like it, right? Like that only gets like
less
so fun.
Creative transitions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So yeah, I mean, I hope that at some point like I was kind of mentioning, like learning different editing styles and like video things,
Yeah.
slow-mo, blah, 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 and incorporating all of that into videos for YouTube. I think my YouTube videos will get more like fun, you know, and entertaining and
Sure.
interesting to watch. But yeah, for now, it's Reels. That's fun to me.
I did not expect that answer. Very good. Well, what types of videos tend to be your most watched videos? You kind of mentioned that's something that you track in terms of metrics.
Yeah.
What are those?
My most watched videos are about designer items that I think people are like considering purchasing. My most watched video of all time, I guess. This may change at some point, but you know, currently it's this bracelet that Chris had got me for our anniversary. It's from Hermes. It's just this like gold and black enameled bracelet. And other than that, it's mostly revolving around like handbags. So handbags that are probably popular that people are interested in, or like, you know, those quintessential ones like people just want for their collections. Those are my most watched videos.
Gotcha. All right. Well, what do you most enjoy about your YouTube channel?
I think the thing I most enjoy is the interaction with others who are watching my videos and the comments that they leave to like interesting conversations. And I sometimes also see people like helping each other out in the comments, which
Nice.
that's interesting too. You know, that's really cool. I think it's great that people feel like they want to help other people out.
That's always nice, especially
Yeah,
after
you
hearing
know,
like all the negative stuff that can come out of social media.
And especially too, you know, I think a lot of times maybe perhaps something that holds people back from posting things on whether it be YouTube or any other social media channel, they might feel like, oh, people are asking me this question. I need to know their answer. You know, like I need to be able to answer them. But it's like, no, people can answer each other in the
Yeah,
comments too.
there you go. Perfect. Well, what's your least favorite aspect of managing your YouTube channel?
The least favorite is honestly setting up all the filming equipment. It's like the
Is it a
setup
pain?
part. It can be, especially when if I happen to like break things down, you know, because like I'm having another call where I need the background of my
To not
video
have
call
that.
to not have all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, so I'm putting it away, I'm moving it on the side, and then the next time I want to record, I'm like, oh my God, I have to take it all out again. I would say that's my least favorite. Like if I could have someone like break down and set up for me every single time and like all the settings were like exactly where it was and all that stuff, then that would be like ideal.
You just need a studio for recording.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, congratulations on 1,000 subscribers. I'm so happy for you. I know this is something you've been working really hard on for a long time. And there's nothing like setting a goal and working really hard at it and finally meeting it. So super huge. Congratulations.
Hey, thank you. I know it's been a while. I know that some other people are able to like just get right there, but we're all working at our own pace, and I'm not sure I would have wanted to like rush it either anyway. So yeah,
Oh
I think
yeah,
it's kind of
there's
like,
it could have turned into something totally different if it was rushed. I think you've been able to get your bearings and learn different things along the way. And I think you've also had to manage negative comments and inappropriate comments and how to navigate all that. So even though it's not great that that happens, it's definitely something that can kind of ease you into it, you know?
yeah.
So I really did not want to end on a negative note. So congratulations. Super
Thanks.
stoked for you.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of The Outright Effect. You can find us at theoutrighteffect.com. Follow us on our social media accounts on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, all at The Outright Effect. And you can also reach out by emailing us at theoutrighteffect@gmail.com. See you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.